As always, if you have got any questions, write them down, give them to Andy Hartley's in the corner over there. And when everyone's up, we'll start with the first question.
Can I just say before we start the questions, I have got a lot of questions here already, so I'm sorry if we're not able to get through every single one of them. But okay, let's start off with this one. This is from Concourse to all the candidates. What do you believe the main role of president entails, and how would you achieve that? We are looking for specific experience, please.
Can we act in order of us? So Scott first, please.
Well, I think that the role of Keele University Students' Union President is to represent the students in a way that no one else can. We need to be there for the students when all else fails. We need to be there, well, I need to be there, could be there, to make sure that the welfare, the education, everything that we can offer to students has been covered. As an example of experience, I have been a star and I've had numerous occasions where I've had to communicate with the education vice presidents, the welfare vice presidents, in terms of sometimes sensitive issues which I feel has put me in a position of trust, and I hope that I've delivered to the students that I've helped. Thank you.
Yeah, the President's role kind of covers the manner of all sins, really. One thing the President's role should have been, and should be, since Communications and Democracy was dissolved, was that the President was supposed to pick up Communications and Democracy, and I'm not criticising anybody for that, but that's one thing that we just haven't done enough, and it's been really frustrating this year particularly to be part of Concourse, and to listen to students. I mean, when I was in my first and second year, people seem more engaged than they are now, and that's really sad. And I think that the union is missing a face, a public face. A president is a little bit of everything, and what a president really needs to be is the face of Keele Students' Union, and I think that's what we need to see more of. And yeah, that's my answer. So.
I agree with Andy there. The President is there to be the face of the Students' Union. And I think the Students' Union is here to deliver to the student a whole experience of what university can offer besides teaching, but that's from the IEU to entertainment, to the finance department, to accommodation, to jobs, that's everything. And as President, I'd say that is my job to help oversee the other SABs to deliver the best results they could. And also, I think the President is there to act as the single voice for the student body, whether it be on a national or international scale, whatever you want to say, even to the students, to the university itself. Make sure that the students' voice is being heard. Make sure that what the students want, the students can hopefully get. And pretty much was there to, yeah, that's all we got.
Okay, so, good question. Long answer. I'll try and keep it short. Basically, President, there for your students, listen to their problems, take those issues, thoughts and opinions out to the heads of the university, and tell them what you're thinking and what you're feeling about the issues that are coming up. At the same time, going back to those students and getting out there, like I'm saying, go talking face to face, using the resources to communicate with students and say, this is what's happening, this is how you could be effective, what are your thoughts on it, what would you like us to say to the university? You asked about experience as well. I'm a resident tutor now. I'm also a part-time sabbatical officer for the Keele Postgraduate Association. Let's see now, during the summer I've been a manager and a coordinator for a language school in charge of over 50 staff and responsible for about 500 international students with different languages, different problems and everything like that. So I've gone about that for a while. Like going back even further, being a student counsellor, being head boy, a position which I set up and still runs about 6 years later now. So it's basically using my role to get out there, engage with students, find the problems, any issues and questions, take to the university.
I guess the other guys have nailed it on the head there. I think the KUSU president needs to be the face of the university. And I think as long as that face is on the ball, enthusiastic, willing to learn, willing to listen to all of you, they're doing their job. If you've got an enthusiastic president, you're more likely to get excited about things that are going on in your university. And I'll be that for you. In terms of experience, I am the chair of the Drama Society. We have excellent experience, especially in the last year or two, where we've had to have some serious constitutional amendments. And I think that links in with democracy, which is, as been said already, a huge part of the presidency as it develops.
Can we have more questions for all candidates?
Okay, next question is also from concourse. The accommodation changes sparked a massive uproar among students. How would you have dealt with it?
Can we start with Andy, please?
Sorry, Andy, could you repeat that for me?
Yeah. The accommodation changes sparked a massive uproar among students. How would you have dealt with it?
Wow. The accommodation debacle sparked an uproar because the university broke a promise to students. In various prospectuses and in next year's prospectus, the university has still promised third year's accommodation. What is most startling about that is that the university, which is truly incredible if you came to the last AGM, didn't know that they had made that promise to students, which I find totally incredible, but whatever. We shouldn't have had to deal with it. It was a question of, you know, third years have been given that promise. Keele is a campus university, it's becoming less so. Whatever your opinion is on that. But we promised third years accommodation and they should have got it. And the way we dealt with it as a collective was to say, look, we were given a promise and you broke that promise. And we got that overturned. I do think it's a shame that third years aren't being given accommodation post 2013, 14, whichever it is. But the university's growing, and I think nobody disagrees with the fact that all first years should have been given on-campus accommodation. That's absolutely the way it should have been. But the problem is, there was a promise that was broken, and a large group of students stood up against that, and you can't argue with that. The sabbatical team worked very hard, and I'm going on too long, I'm sorry. This was a big thing for me. The SAB team worked very hard to, to deal with this. But again, it's communications and democracy. No one was spearheading anything. Everybody was speaking separately and no one was speaking for one. And if we had that throughout the process, then things may have been different. Things may have moved more quickly and things may have been organised in a better way. So yeah, that's my answer.
I think the question also applies to whether you mean before or after the whole debacle came out. Because before, I can understand before actually the information was released to students, the students' union was in talks with the university, and thanks to their great dedication and brilliant negotiating, they managed to get the information out there months before the university was planning on telling everyone, and so gave everyone a greater chance, if the situation still stood, to get their campus accommodation. I think that'd be a brilliant chance then, and if I was in the same situation as them, I would have done probably the exact same, try to push the university to release the information as quickly as possible and try to deliver the students what they're right. That was in writing that the university did fail to overlook and is still being overlooked because it has to be in the prospectus for next year. So it'll be 2014 students that don't get the on-campus accommodation in third year. After the fact, trying to handle how students were being after the fact. I'm getting my mind blank, not gonna lie. I'm going to come off all there.
Okay, so the question was how would I have handled the same situation? And my answer, well, the short answer is exactly the same. I want to stand up for the sabbatical team and say they've done an amazing job this year. And they're put in a really difficult situation. So basically, what they did was they were told that accommodation wasn't going to be guaranteed. What did they do? They tried to change the university's mind, and the university wouldn't budge. So they started to try and campaign for them to release the information early to tell the students so they could prepare and give them more time to prepare. And the university didn't budge. I've lost my point, but so they wouldn't budge enough. So they started coming up with strategies and sort of compromises to say, okay, we're not going to offer students on-campus third years on-campus accommodation. So what can we look at to help students when they're living off campus? And still, so by the end of it, they were pushed to the point where it was coming up to Christmas time. Students were about to go back, and so the sabbatical officer said, we're going to release this information against, what you're saying, because we want students to know to give them time to prepare for this sort of stuff. So, I mean, the long and short answer is exactly the same. Eventually, throwing it out to the students, you've had some amazing sort of responses from this, and eventually worked out that university sort of looked back and said, okay, we're going to keep this guaranteed for the year.
I think the SABs this year handled it exceptionally well, and again, similarly, I would probably go down the same route. I think going straight to the source is the best plan, and going back to my manifesto, I think communication and transparency are absolutely the key things here. Having faces from Keele accommodation staff at the UGM would be excellent. Being able to for students to actually come and talk to them, put their views across straight to the source, that's a really good way of doing things. And making sure that students know exactly what's going on, why things are the way they are, giving everyone a chance to talk to each other. I think, as Joe's just said, strategy is a good way of doing it. I think it's beautiful that Keele students do care enough to change staff's minds. I think it's good that we care enough to campaign, we care about these issues, and in my opinion, listening to everybody, trying to come to the best conclusion is the best way.
Yeah, just to iterate on what Andy said, the promise was broken, and I thought the way that this current SAB team handled the situation was incredible, and in my personal opinion, the way I would have done it is exactly the same. Like everyone else has said, it's been a fantastic job that was done, and what we all have to remember is if the students unite, one great voice against Keele executives who are trying to enforce this, we're unstoppable, we're unbreakable. Thank you.
Okay, so another question to all candidates. This position clearly involves a lot of teamwork. How will you manage to be a good president if you find unhappy or weak links in the sabbatical team?
Can we start with Matt Thompson, please?
So to clarify, do you mean what would I do to weak or productive sabbatical?
The question is, how will you manage to be a good president if you find unhappy or weak links in the sabbatical team?
Okay. Well, I suppose that's really asking questions. I know, as president, I don't hold any precedence over any of the other sabbatical positions, so I wouldn't have the authority to fire them. But I think any weak links would need to be probably identified, not to say that any talking behind any backs, but possibly to inform said sabbatical that possibly they weren't pulling their weight or doing what they actually said they would do in a manifesto or even a random meeting. And possibly this might mean delegating tasks to SABs, hopefully not increasing their workload to a point where it's unbearable or unproductive, but trying to ensure that what needs to get done does get done. Can't let a sabbatical simply sit idly by and let an issue such as education or welfare just fall by the wayside when it's their responsibility. Ensuring that every SAB does his or her role to the best of their ability would be my priority as the person who, as the president, who does, I guess without lack of a better term, oversees them.
Okay, so what would I do? The first thing I do, because I've come across this on various occasions as Vice President of the Law Society and Vice President of the Bar Society, is give these people the appropriate chances to get their act together, take them to one side. It's not supposed to be like this public thing where you say this person isn't doing their job. Take them to the side and say, these are the issues, what are you going to do to sort it out? And if you can't do your job, what are the next steps? In the case for myself, in the Bar Society and the Law Society, we got rid of those committee members. They weren't doing their job, so we replaced them. I actually became a part-time sabbatical officer for the KPUA, which is the Field Postgraduate Association, halfway through the year because the person before me wasn't doing their job and caused a load of problems. So hopefully if you talk to a couple of people, they'll say I've done an okay job so far. Also during the summertime, as a coordinator and a senior manager for the international school, language school that I was working at, there were times when even senior management team members weren't pulling their weight. And again, the same responses, take them to the side, say, this is what's happening, people aren't happy, what are we going to do about this?
Good question. I agree. I think that being part of this team is about teamwork. It's about how we present ourselves as a team. In terms of weak links and how to handle it, stay professional. It is a job, and if we show students that we have a weak link, what does that say to them? So stay strong, and I guess as Joe said, take them aside, find out what's wrong, what's going on. There are the open portfolio positions available to take on any excess that might need dealing with. Be sensible and have some tact, I think, is the best way here.
Yes, definitely. The role of the SABs has got to be a very mutual team-working affair. Everyone has to help each other out, come rain or shine, in good or bad. It has to happen. If next year there's a weak link in the SAB team, maybe that weak link could be an aspect of my work. I'd expect someone to tell me about it, and I also will tell someone else about it. It doesn't have to be publicly blown out of proportion. We should just all help each other to ensure that we have got the best SAB team that Keele University could possibly have. Thank you.
I'm a little bit cautious about this use of the word sort of weak link. If there is somebody in a group of, in any organisation, and there's one person there, or two people indeed, that are identified as not doing their job effectively, then let's not be messing around with it. I want to be able to say, if I'm working with you, I'm not going to go public with it. I want to be able to say, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, pull your weight. And I think that's important. The SABs currently have a meeting every week, on a Monday morning, and that's the sort of time that these things should be addressed. I mean, ultimately, professionalism is the key. There are 5 people who have got to work together through everything, and those are the people, we should be talking to each other. And I don't think that, I just don't, I mean, in terms of the question, I don't actually think there's an issue. If there is an issue, then, talk about it, say so. I mean, we're all adults, and that's really all I've got to say.
The next question is to all candidates again. What is your leadership style? Strong and decisive, consensual and passive, or a mixture?
Can we start with Joe Taylor, please?
Good question. I'll keep it short. It's a mixture of both, depending on the situation and context.
I think the drama people that are here today will happily tell you that I am quite strong, and maybe strong is not the right word, I'm passionate. I get very passionate about things that I think are the best way to go forward, and I always try to make sure that happen. But, as I said before, tact. I can be very sensitive. If people have got personal issues going on, that's absolutely fine. So a little bit of both, I guess.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question again? I didn't catch the first bit of it.
So it's, what is your leadership style? Strong and decisive, consensual and passive, or a mixture?
Well, anybody who knows me will thoroughly agree that my leadership style is strong and decisive. The way I manage the pig and rat is the way how I will always live my life. If I'm worried about an issue, I'll get it rectified, but generally, if I'm not informed about it, I won't comment on it. Strong and decisive all the way. Thank you.
I suppose it depends on the situation, really. Not to drag up the accommodation dead horse again, but that was about identifying the core problem. The core problem was that the university broke its promise. Once you've identified that problem, then you can be decisive and say, look, this is the problem, that needs fixing, you've got it wrong, and you need to sort that out. If there's a situation where, any other given situation where mediation is needed or some sort of consensus is required, then yeah, absolutely, that's what we should be looking for. So, to be horrible and repetitive, yeah, mix, I guess, depends on the situation.
Straight off, I'm a mixture of both. I'm strong and decisive, especially when I'm representing students. I'm the chair staff for life sciences, meaning I get all the life science staff, students coming to me, telling me their issues. And I'll take it to staff, and I will stand up for each and every one of them. And even if the staff try to defend themselves, say, no, it's this, for rather selfish reasons sometimes, and I'll try and push to make sure it gets rectified. Then again, I'm the president of KUSU Snapshots, and I know at times it's quite difficult, especially with two committee members grow up, really up and coming society, trying to deliver services all across campus, trying to deliver photographers, training, trips away and everything, even buying equipment. And it's difficult to put too much pressure on my secretary and treasurer. But, again, with the decisiveness, I've driven Snapshot quite a long way. I set up the society last year as a photography society. Then went on study abroad, unfortunately, it died. I brought back, I kick-started it again as KUSU Snapshot, rebranded it, and now it's growing bigger and stronger than it ever has been. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think, yeah, I am a mixture of both. I'm not scared at all to stand up for what I believe in and to try to deliver the best results. But then again, I'm not that much of a tight ass.
Another question to all candidates. What would you stop, what would you start, and what would you carry on about what the current SABs have done?
And can we start with Joe Taylor, please?
Okay, what would we're going to mix that up a little bit. What would I carry on? I think the positive feeling behind the redevelopment, it's such a good way of thinking that we can change, we can grow, we can develop as we go. That mentality, we've got this chance to be fresh, to be exciting, let's take it, I want that to carry on. In terms of what I would start, I guess the redevelopment of the KUSU website is something that I absolutely want to get started, to get on it. If I get elected or not, it's something that needs sorting out. It's all in the manifesto, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I want to make sure that there is somewhere, everywhere, everyone can go, one unified place, make it easily accessible, easy to use. I guess that's what I'd start. What would I stop? I want to stop this idea that UGMs are boring for KUSU eggheads, as it's been coined. I want to inject a little bit of life into democracy and stop this dull, stagnant idea that seems to surround it, because that's absolutely not true. Yeah.
Right, what I'd like to start is I'd definitely like to start increasing the amount of employer fairs, training fairs and employability skills fairs that we can offer to students, because I think that's paramount to what students need in this university. Anybody can go up and get a degree, but if you haven't got the tools and the ability to go and be better than every other candidate for the job you're going for, then what's the point in getting a degree? What I'd like to stop is probably the misinformation that KUSU entertainments don't try their best to get what they can for the Students' Union. At the end of the day, they have huge overheads to cover, and trying to put on massive acts, it's just not viable. We're only allowed, for massive acts, the ballroom is 1,100 capacity. That's what we're allowed to go with, whereas somewhere like a huge arena, it's tens of thousands, and it's just not viable to put on huge acts and charge people £20 a ticket, because no one will come. No one wants to pay £20 to see an act. What I carry on is definitely what Adam Preston's been doing with the intramural sports and all the non-competitive tournaments that are for fun, and to get everybody involved who isn't a part of the AU, and to make sure that everybody can have access to going and enjoying the sport, especially if they don't want to be a part of a competitive team in the Bucks League. If they can just go on, play football, whenever, or play another sport, it's just something that can engage the students and give them a bit of a better experience at university without being competitive and the bitchiness of some of the AU's clubs. Thank you.
I've got my answers down in my hand because I'm a bit sad. I'd stop spending too much time pandering to people whose minds that I can't change, you know, just in it to be awkward. I'd start improving the catering facilities from September, because we're going to have incredible facilities, incredible equipment, and we should make use of them. And I'd carry on the forums, because back officers have made a fantastic use of forums this year, and that's something that I think should only continue, because whilst there is still a core group of people who participate in these, once more and more people know about them, we can actually get people talking. We can have education forums, welfare forums, presidential forums, whatever, and they're a really useful tool. So.
I'd start by bringing KUSU in, well, really into the 21st century, modernising it. Starting KUSU 2.0, especially with the ground floor redevelopments, we can have real, decent, modern sort of, space there for students to use. I think that will also tie with the new websites that hopefully will be more interactive, easier for students to use and get information from. This also ties in that I'd like to carry on improving sound advertisement, exactly about who they are and what they do. We can't have a cutout for a great idea and see them dotted around, really makes us surprised and realise they're not real. And then, but hopefully more students start to realise who they are, who people are to represent them. What I want to stop is also carried on from that last point. I want to stop stuck in my office 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And some students are too afraid to go up in the top corridor. They don't know who is up in the top corridor or what they can get from it. I want to allow a more inviting, accessible way for students to get access to SAD, whether it be downstairs for a meeting once a week, or just by inviting better place cards for how to get to the SAD offices.
Right, so what would I stop? I'd stop our reliance on whether or not students read our emails and Facebook. What would I start? I'd start getting out there and getting all the rest of the verticals to get out there, talk to students face to face, tell them what's happening, find out issues, questions, problems. What would I carry on? The Milking calendar, it's amazing. It brings together everything that's happening in Kiel and also a bit of what's happening outside Kiel, all together in one place where students can go, all right, this is what's happening this month, and then you get a bit of advertising on the side as well. But I'm saying that, but add more to it.
Another question to all the candidates. What is your view of the current no platform policy?
Can we start with Scott?
Well, after trying to get my head around this today, and a few previous days as well. I'm just going to have to say, I have no idea. Thank you.
Knew that one was going to come up. I seconded that policy at UGM in September, October time. Whatever happened, the university couldn't find the original policy. The union couldn't find the original policy. And there was a bit of a panic because there was an emergency motion raised at that UGM to remove no platform policy. I seconded the policy. I'd second it again. The one thing I would say is that it was poorly worded, and we did rush it. Rosie and I proposed and seconded it. If I was going to defend it, I would say the same thing as I said at the UGM that night. This is a charity. It's got the welfare of all students in mind, including the students whose views we don't agree with. But I don't want, regardless of what your opinion is, and regardless of what you think about everybody being in the group and speaking together, and I'm all for that, believe me, I am. And I want us to challenge groups like the BNP, but I don't want them on the stage because I believe it's intimidating, and I don't want them here. If we want to do it somewhere else in the university, then good on you. That's absolutely fine. In terms of one thing I will defend, or rather say that we got totally wrong, I'm shooting myself in the foot here, is that the policy was left open to the interpretation that people who held extreme or fascist views would then not be allowed to come into the union premises. I think that is, and should be taken with a degree of leniency, because no student should ever not be able to access the essential services such as the IAU or any services that it needs. But I don't want anybody speaking on this platform. We can do it anywhere else, but I seconded it, I stand by it. It needs rewriting. I did rewrite it in February, March time. And for whatever reason I haven't put it out there, but it is there, and we've got a better policy. I'm sorry if you disagree with it, but I stand by it wholeheartedly.
I have to admit, I was at that EGM, I photographed it, I listened, and I did vote, and I supported it. What I thought of it anyway, or what I thought it meant. Perhaps a slight tangent here. I think these sort of motions should be better worded, so everyone really understands what it's about. But anyway, to my best knowledge, that was to mean that exactly no extremists, no fascists, no communists, people would be allowed to stand and represent themselves in a potential publication like the Students' Union. And I support that, to be honest. I think the Students' Union should be, well, neutral, to be honest, and shouldn't really expose people to that sort of, well, if they really want to find those views, they'll find them, in my opinion.
Okay, so what do I think of the no platform policy? I'll be very honest. I'm still trying to get my head around it. But basically, what I understand of it is that if you have an extreme view opinion of voice that, then you're not going to be allowed here. Although I agree that if you have some extreme views, which might be found offensive, like obviously you wouldn't want someone on stage shouting out about it. But I agree with Andy and say you can't stop them. This university has to be, and the student union has to be an inclusive one for all students, no matter what their views are. And if you're going to define what an extreme view is, who defines it, and where does it stop?
This is a tough one. I think that the guys are right. It absolutely, the current policy, it needs rewording, and he's already said it's been done. It needs going in, it needs sorting out. No one should be banned from this university or not allowed into the university, regardless of their views. We all hold different views on everything. That's necessary, it needs doing. In terms of the policy itself, I'm not afraid of the BNP or whoever it may be that might come in here and talk to us about it. That's not to say that I don't understand why people don't want to feel threatened in their union. This is Keel's hub. We have to feel safe here. What I'm still trying to get my head around is if there wasn't a policy in place before to stop them, they didn't come in anyway, what's to say they would again? Now, of course, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have one in place. I think it needs a lot of thinking about, it needs a lot of delicate research. I would like to think that we could all stand together and be safe to talk about our own views and how we feel because it's our union. We should feel safe here, we should be completely open to talk about how we feel. It should give us a chance to tell other people our opinions. I don't know if inviting them here is the best idea, but is having a policy in place inviting them here in the first place? It's a bit of a vague answer, a conceptual answer, but like we've all said, getting heads around it is quite a big deal. I think maybe a survey, how do people feel about this, maybe bring it up at a UGM. If it's to go in again, then that'll probably happen anyway, so that's a good move. So yeah.
Yet another question to all candidates. This year, the Athletic Union are moving to become a department of KUSU. And while the day and day running of sport will be largely up for to the VP, AU and sport, what are you going to do to help the AU's transition and engage sporting students in KUSU?
Can we start with Andy Owen, please?
It's a great thing. I supported it. I'm not an expert, I'll be honest. I'd stand with the new VP in that capacity, and I'd support them as much as they needed. I'm not an expert, and I won't pretend to be, so that's all I've got, I'm afraid.
I'm much the same as Andy. I don't even hold an AU card. I go to the gym there. I haven't actually used any sporting facilities, so I'm not a great expert on it. I've seen everyone play it, and I fully support that. I think it's a great thing that's part of KUSU now, because perhaps if it was, might have been, I don't know, maybe easy to access, maybe I'd have heard more information about different sports and what I could have done. So I fully support and I'll help the VP sports in any way, shape or form that I could.
Could you repeat the question?
This year, the AU are moving to become a department of KUSU, and while the day-to-day running of sport will be largely to fall to the VP AU in sport, what are you going to do to help the AU's transition and engage sporting students in KUSU?
Okay, short answer, everything I could, because I'm all about engaging with students and getting them involved with nearly every single aspect of university life. I learned a new sport when I started here at Keele, and since then I've been part of the committee, club treasurer, club secretary, second team captain and tour secretary as well. So basically I work my hardest to promote sports at Keele and help the AU, who's under KUSU now, to do that. But not just competitive sports, just fun stuff as well.
Going on the fun stuff note, I agree. I've taken part in Rugby Sevens every year that I've been here, and yet, for some reason, never decided to get involved in the AU because, you know, I eat takeaway more than once a week, and it's embarrassing when I run. I think, as Jordan and Rachel picked up when they were up here, maybe having an AU presence at the Freshers Fair will be a really good move this year. Taster days, having an AU fair itself in the union would be really good steps. Again, reinventing the website, shifting it about a bit so that AU gets its own section. You can go and everyone can go and see and look exactly what's going on. And that's the best way to go.
Yeah, just to carry on from what Joe was saying, to represent students, represent the AU for every single student and having a presence at Fresh Affairs, it's going to be something great for Keele University. It's going to be helping people get involved with competitive books teams. It's going to be help people get involved with all the intramural sports and have fun. Just enjoy being active and doing so. I've been a member of rugby since I started here at Keele. I've been actively using the gym. You wouldn't guess it, really. And I think the changeover period is going to be an exciting one, and it's going to fall completely down to the VP Sports and the executive managers across the sports centre to ensure that that transition is as best as it can be. And I think that AU being part of the Students' Union is a fantastic idea. And if I'm elected president, I will do everything that I can to help that transition and make it as smooth as possible. Thank you.
One last question to all the candidates. Do you think a Vice President Communications Democracy should be reinstated, and if so, which SAB position would you get rid of or condense to bring it back?
Can we start on that, Thompson?
Wow. So there's an option between removing a SAB or giving it to one. Is that correct?
Okay. The question is, do you think VP Comms and Democracy should be reinstated? And which SAB position would you get rid of or condense to bring it back?
Okay. VP Communications. I remember back when Fadi was VP Communications and Democracy. I remember much of what his job was to run a flight concourse, which is now Society, and to help run the elections, which is now being done by student services, student activities, and other entities. So possibly student democracy and communication isn't necessarily going to be reinstated, but possibly it could be a greater. I wouldn't get rid of the SAB role, especially not now that the AU is merging with KUSU. You couldn't get rid of sports. That would be just far too much. What possibly on the welfare side, there'd possibly a side mission to increase communications out to the students, increase promotion of what the university, what union can provide, and that's what I would do.
Okay, could you repeat the question quickly, and then I'll answer it very quickly as well.
Do you think Vice President Communications Democracy should be reinstated, and which SAB position would you get rid of or condense to bring back?
Okay, so I was here when they decided to get rid of that position, and the reason for it was because it was an outdated position, and a lot of the responsibilities that the democracy position had was distributed evenly amongst the other sabbatical officers. If there came a time when it was a need for that position to come back, I would reduce or remove the president's position.
I think, well, to start off with, when I first started thinking about the SAB positions in my first year, VP Comms and Democracy would have been what I'd gone for. I think it's interesting that now it's gone, all of us are standing on points of raising publicity and communication, which is good. It should be a shared idea. I don't think I would get rid of any positions. Potentially, I think rejigging would be a good idea. It was mentioned in one of the other candidates' questioning that finance and activities is 90% societies, 10% finance. Maybe the finances should be given to the SABs as a whole, so we can sort of reach a team decision, as I'm sure it already is discussed anyway, and activities just becoming an activities officer. It's not really necessary. I don't know, that's probably as far as I would go in terms of destroying a role. I don't think comms and democracy needs to be reinstated. Communications, well, democracy is now the president's job, which that's fine. And communications, as I said before, it needs to come from all the SABs, really.
Well, I'd just like to say, great minds think alike, Joe. To be honest, if we needed to reinstate the role of comms and democracy, it should be placed and condensed. We should condense the president's job, because isn't that what we're standing for as president? We are trying to invoke democracy between students, between all the student body, and we need to communicate properly with every single student so that they've got the best opportunity and experience that they can possibly get. Thank you.
I did think that we should reinstate the role. I now don't, because I think that the majority and bulk of comms and democracy, which are the most important things that we do here, communicating and being democratic, should be picked up by the President, and that's what I do.
Okay, we're going to move on to individual questions. There's only one each currently. For Joe Turner, you are currently the Finance Secretary for the KPA. Why have you chosen to run for KUSU President instead for the KPA?
Simple reason, short answer. The Kiel Postgraduate Association represents postgraduate students in all their needs and issues and everything else. The Students' Union represents both undergraduates and postgraduates. So why not go for the position that represents the most number of students across the whole university?
Okay, this question is for both Matt Thompson and Joe Flynn. You said that you wanted transparency. What do you mean by transparency, and how will this benefit you students, current students, and the university as a whole?
Sorry, who was that for?
Matt Thompson and Joe Flynn.
Can we go with Matt Thompson first then, please?
Okay. Well, in my manifesto, to increase transparency, I want to get students, especially freshers, a better idea of exactly who the SABs are and what they can do for people. From what I remember of moving into halls in this year's third year, there was a booklet, and maybe on the third, fourth page, fifth page, there was then it was written out exactly who the SABs were. A tiny little picture and a tiny little description of exactly who they are. Possibly even just an A5 sheet with each photo, each description of what it can do and what they do for students is one example of just how promotion will be better. Trying to improve democracy as well. Try and get more students to come to UGMs so they have a better idea of actually what's happening with the Students' Union. And I want... So could you repeat the question again?
Sorry. It says, what do you mean by transparency, and how will this benefit new students, current students, and the university as a whole?
By transparency, I mean I want students to have a better idea of exactly who is representing them and what they can do for said students. And I've said exactly a few things of what I would do to increase transparency of students and how they have a better idea of who's representing them. And I think I'm doing circulars on myself.
When I first, best example of transparency and how I see it, when I first came into the drama committee, the committee was in such a way that the members had no idea who the committee were, what they did. They didn't know why decisions were made. Things were just as they were. In terms of building transparency, just seems the right way to go about things. If people know what's going on, if people can see exactly why things are going on, we can increase publicity. I think the sabbatical blogs are a really good way of doing this. It keeps people interested, it gives them regular updates on decisions being made within the university. Transparency is just something that students will appreciate. If you show the students what we're doing, they're going to care more about it.
Okay, this question is for Scott Johnson. Your aims in your manifesto appear to be very generic and not very individual. What would be your first move, and how would you achieve it?
Well, they're very outlined and dedicated for a very good reason, so that they are achievable, so that I'm not going to waffle on saying I'm going to do X amount of things when I know in my heart that I can't do that for every student. The first point of call for me would be definitely the IAU, because I don't think that the entirety of the student population at Kiel understands the significance of what the IAU does and how they can help every single student in this in this university. It's been a godsend for me, and I know that a lot of other students would really, really need the help, and don't know about where to ask and what to do. So that'd be the main thing that I'd start with. Thank you.
That's it for the individual questions. So each candidate will now have the opportunity to ask one of the candidate questions. We'll ask if you want to ask that question in order plus. So Scott, Andy, Matt, Joe,
So that's the end of Hustings 2012. I hope that's helped you make a decision. Voting opens Monday 9 AM, closes Wednesday 5 PM. There should be a really big night on Wednesday as well for results. So make sure you come along to that. Thanks very much, everyone.